Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Friend Seekers Anonymous podcast brought to you by Cash
and Finn.
We're really excited for this one because we are in our soon-to-be permanent studio, and we've been recording outside and having to deal with a lot of bird sounds and other things like leaf blowers. It has not been great.
No.
And so hopefully the sound is better for you guys on your end, and we're just really excited to finally be able to keep a consistent vibe.
We are very excited. So last week we talked a lot about how to sort of use Bumble BFF to kick off an initial friend connection and make a new friend. And this week we really want to get into how to grow that initial friendship into something deeper and hopefully have a long-lasting connection with somebody.
Yeah, because I know I'm speaking for myself and Finley. When I go on Bumble BFF, I'm ultimately looking for some lifelong friends, or at least friends that I'll have for many years. And so I think it's a whole topic in and of itself to talk about really how to find that, because it's hard to come across and things change over time. And so, how you react to that matters.
Absolutely. I think we all just really want community. So let's get into it. So I think first off, we just want to tell you guys how we became close friends, because we obviously started off as a little light Bumble connection, and now here we are, 1.5, 2 years?
Almost 2 years later.
Yeah, I think we actually said that wrong in the first podcast. I think we've been friends for about 2 years now.
It's funny because I remember I was mentioning moving here in 2023. That is not accurate.
No.
It's 2022, but time flies, and it is hard for me to keep track of some days.
We messed up a lot of timelines, but we're going on 2 years of friendship now, and I think we're quite close. So do you want to tell them a little bit about how that probably just me and all my amazingness?
Definitely. For me, something I really want to touch upon with you guys is how much time you are able to give a new friend that you're really trying to move into a deeper, more, long-term friendship with. Because something I struggled with when I first moved here, I was just taking on more than I could chew, really. And I thought that I could be friends with everybody. And I was so excited that I was matching with all these different people. And so I wasn't consciously thinking about the next step, which is spending consistent quality time with the same people that you really want to grow deeper with. And so I was kind of I felt like I had handled the first introduction hangouts. I was really good at the next couple also. But then after that, it's I don't know, once I felt like I had already created a genuine connection, I didn't mindfully think about how much time I should be giving to that person to keep it going.
Totally. I think that's honestly a really good point, and something that people forget about a lot, especially like you said, when you get excited, you're meeting a lot of new people. It's so special. It takes really regular and consistent time to build closeness with somebody. I think the fundamental basis of closeness, other than sharing, is time. So I guess for you, how often do you think per week or per month you need to be seeing someone to really build a close relationship?
Yeah, I think that's honestly a great question. And it's funny because you were actually the first person that even brought this up with me. And I can't remember how early on it was, but I think we both talked about just our schedules and how it's been really fun to go on these Bumble dates, but we don't know how to keep it consistent with that many people. And so you and I had this really conscious conversation where we were how often do you want to hang out? And I felt early on we were hanging out almost 2 to 3 times a week, but that was also because we lived about 5 minutes away from each other, which was just circumstance and really cool. But then you moved a little bit further away, and now at this point it's maybe 1 to 2 times a week. And I think that that's a sweet spot for me. I don't know about you guys, but I work a 9 to 5 during the week, and so unless I'm feeling an energy burst, I don't always want to go out throughout the week. Maybe 1 or 2 times Monday to Friday, but other than that, I want to spend the time after work working on my hobbies and whatever else I have to do. And so I think for the beginning, it's subjective, and you should really have a conversation with each person about it when you feel comfortable. But I think 1 to 2 times a week, if you're really trying to
make a friend,
be thick with them,
Yeah, I completely agree. I would say obviously things come up and it's never going to be 100% consistent, but if it's less than once a week, I think in general you're sort of going to be out of touch with someone's life at this point. I think we see each other I mean, like once a week.
Once a week is consistent.
Yeah.
And I feel like the times that we haven't seen each other for a week, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I take it a little personally.
I was about to say, I get a little sad, and I'm like, where?
Yeah, because like I'm used to that routine, and like, even though it's not the same day every day or every week, like we reach out at least, you know, 1 to 2 times a week. And so I don't know. What about you? So you think like minimum once a week?
Minimum once a week. And I think that this is something, I think if you're a really busy person, once every like 10-ish days, but then you need to be consistently reaching out over like text or phone calling.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, this is a conversation you and I have had. I don't know if this is a little too like structured for you guys, but the way that I really like to look at it is like there are 7 days in a week. And if you're trying to see somebody once a week, then I think the important thing to do if you're starting to feel like overwhelmed by how many social obligations you have to keep up with is just be mindful about how many friends you're trying to make at one time. Because I know we've both gone through phases where we were trying to make like all the friends, but at the point that you're talking to like 9 different people, there aren't 9 days in a week. You just can't keep up. So I like to think about how many days a week I need for just myself, and then how many I'm willing to give to other people, and just really scale the amount of friends that I'm trying to make to that structure. And when I do that, I find that it's a lot easier for me to like actually go deep. But that is a long-winded answer to your question.
Honestly, I 100% agree with that, because something I wanted to touch upon is just like, I think it's important for each of us to have a conversation with ourselves before we even start to kind of go on Bumble BFF or like trying to make friends in whatever avenue that you end up deciding. But like, I never thought about that before I moved here and like really was like trying to get in the social game. And so, I was not thinking about how much time that I had. I was not thinking about the amount of friends that I wanted. Like, you know, it was completely new for me, and it was so exciting. And, you know, so I just wasn't really consciously thinking about it. But really, when I boil it down now, like I have a few close friends that I consistently see, but then I have some like acquaintances as well, or maybe not acquaintances, but people I just don't see weekly. And like, I do think that that's worth mentioning also, that it's okay to have some friends that you're really close with, and it's okay to have other friends that you don't see as much. But, you know, deciding what works for the other person is important, because if you make a new friend on Bumble and they are really looking for their bestie that they're going to see every single week, you know, and you're only making time for them every other week or every few weeks, they're probably going to be turned off by that and feel some type of way, and it's not going to end up being a long-term thing. And so I think just having these conversations when the opportunity presents itself is important.
Yeah, like just being really clear about it. Sounds exactly like dating, but just be really clear about like what you're looking for, and you know, communicating that to the other person.
Yeah, and I think there are so many similarities with dating and doing this whole process. And so if you are telling yourself that, oh no, they should be different, and, you know, I shouldn't have to be this mindful about how I'm approaching friendships, I think your friendships will suffer because of that perspective. Because I just think, you know, what we're talking about is just being mindful of other people. And when you do that, I would hope that people would be mindful of what you need as well.
And I think ultimately they're really like, they're not that different. I mean, the basis of both like creating friendships and dating is putting yourself out there and making genuine and hopefully long-lasting connections as an adult. Like that's what it is. So I think sort of using the same mindset might take you far.
Yeah.
So as far as how we got close, I think for us it was actually a little bit a stroke of luck, because I think we just have such natural chemistry, but it was mostly just spending a lot of time together. Like Cash said, we saw each other like 2 to 3 times a week
in the beginning.
In the beginning, we spent a lot of time.
Which, let me say, it might not work for everybody, but I think that that is a true sign of like an amazing friendship. Yeah. Because just like in relationships, if you really like the person, you want to spend a lot of time with them off tops, and that doesn't have to be the entire relationship, but you know, those are the ones I think are really special and you need to foster.
Yeah. Of course, on top of time, it was also, I think, just genuine sharing. Like she and I right off the bat were keeping each other, we were like telling each other our backstories, giving each other all the lore, but also
the lore is necessary.
but also trying to get into like what we were struggling with that week. Like, we just got really raw with each other.
And, there's so much that goes on in a day, in a week for most people. And so if you're not seeing a person for 2 weeks to 3 weeks at a time, there's so much that's gone on that you haven't been able to connect with that friend. And like the consistent connections with just day-to-day things that happened are, I think, what a lot of us are looking for. Like, I want a friend throughout the day. I want somebody that I can depend on and I can reach out whenever I got something going on, and like I can look out for their support.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is something that we've both experienced a little bit in other Bumble connections, which we can talk about. But like this feeling that on top of like needing to see each other a lot, that like the sharing isn't necessarily there. Like, as scary as it is, I think a level of vulnerability also really helps with closeness, because pretty early on, like, we were talking to each other about stuff that was hard for us, like right in this very moment. Like, we would say to each other, like, I'm just having a really rough mental health day, or like this fucked up thing is going on with my family. I think like on our second or third date, you were telling me about some issue you were having with your sister, which sort of led us to naturally like talking about more family stuff. And I'm not saying you need to like overshare or like bare all your deepest secrets, but it was relevant in that moment, like it was happening to you, and you shared with me. And I think we just sort of got into that habit. So like my best advice for closeness is really like vulnerability, honestly.
Because then you have constant things to talk about. Like, I have one friend who has made comments about not feeling like they have a lot to say to new friends, and like the conversation could be awkward sometimes, and like, how do I know when to open up and when to not? And I just think it's, you should try to be your authentic self as much as possible, because if we're talking about long-term friendships, they're going to figure out how you are eventually. And so let's not wait until 6 months in to show them what you really are like and what you expect in a friendship. And like, let's just get it out in the beginning, because we did that, I think, like subconsciously, and it really worked out. And like, sharing stuff about what's happening with my family, like that led into you asking questions about my family and who is my family and how do I, navigate my relationships with them, and all of these different things that kind of like naturally go into questions that you need to learn about somebody off tops. And like, another example is like my friend, we were hanging out with a Bumble friend mutually. We were in kind of like a trio hangout. And one of the friends was talking about their family a lot, and then after the hangout, my other friend was like, I felt like she didn't ask me like any questions about my family, like she's just talking about hers, and like I didn't have an opportunity to like share anything about me. And I was like, you know what, hands down, like I get that. There's certain people that are gonna really want you to ask questions so that they feel comfortable opening up, but then there's also the approach of just sharing like-minded experiences, like if you're talking about your family, when you've finished talking about that, and then I'm going to try to relate it to a story that I have. And, obviously you need to be mindful of when you're relating stories of your own to people's experiences that are different. But generally, when you're first meeting somebody, like, we need to learn about each other. And so if you're talking about something that happened to you and it feeds into something that happened to me, I think that's a great opening to just talk about ourselves.
Yes, I think just shit. That's a really good point. And I honestly hadn't like thought about it until you said it, but I do think I also hear from a lot of people like worries about the silence, or like, oh, I don't know what to say on these friend dates. And I think I've totally been there, but I think something that's like really helped me, and especially helped me in developing close relationships, is just like really sitting with the idea that I am a full and complex person, and I have a full and complex life, and so do they. So there should, like, if I'm being honest, there should definitely always be stuff to say, like
100%. And I think that goes back to the point of just being authentic. What do you talk about with your current friends? What do you talk about with your family? It doesn't have to be that same dynamic with a new friend that maybe you don't feel fully comfortable with yet. But like, I think that should be the goal, that you can be your authentic self that you already are to the other people in your lives. And, this is just a new person that you can connect with on that front.
Absolutely. But I think this is all great advice, not to toot our own horns or anything, but
is that your toot?
I was literally about to be like, I don't know why that was my toot.
I'm gonna apologize for that sound, because it's probably awful on the listeners.
I apologize sincerely. This is my first public apology.
It'll be the first of many.
Toot, toot. Was that better?
Not at all. Let's do
it. Anyway, I think this is not also to discount like the element that just chemistry and connection play in it. Like, I know we've both had experiences where we really tried to get close with somebody and we were putting in the time and we were trying to share, but like the chemistry just wasn't giving.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, you're gonna meet people and you're gonna show up as your authentic self and you're gonna be doing all these things that maybe we're talking about or your own version of that, and you still might not vibe with that person, and you may feel like, oh, it's a rejection because I'm opening up and like they are not vibing with it. And I think that's like, those are the experiences that a lot of people have who end up maybe on Bumble or another app, where they've done that. They've been their authentic selves in situations where they just didn't get a positive response, and that made them kind of want to shut down and not approach people in that way. Let me just say, my first Bumble date when I first moved here to LA was pretty jarring for me because I had never been on a Bumble date before here in LA, and I'd only been on maybe a couple in Seattle right before I moved just to try it out, and I was really, really nervous. I didn't know how to approach them. I didn't know if they were gonna like me. Like, there was all this, self-doubt that I went into with it. And this girl, let me just say, we just didn't vibe. Like, we didn't really have any chemistry. I felt like there were so many lulls in the conversation that I was like searching for things to say. And I see so many memes about this online that make me feel vindicated. But like, when I'm feeling very awkward and I feel like there's nothing being said, I go into info dumping.
You sure did.
Because I'm nervous and I just want to keep the conversation up. And so I kind of like naturally went into that when I felt like things were getting awkward. And she was just not, I don't think, vibing with what I'm saying. And that's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, having that be my first experience here and then having like no follow-up, like we texted a few more times, but there was never any plan to hang out again. And that was mutual. But I guess, I don't know, like I expected her to reach out even though I hadn't. And like, I felt really rejected by that. I was just like, damn, like I was probably a mess. And like, this is why I don't have more friends. Yeah. And I don't think that was accurate, because then I did it a few more times and I kind of got my groove and I found people that I just naturally clicked with more.
Yeah, I think that's another really important thing, like just not taking it personally. Like I think so many of us, especially when we get on Bumble BFF, are in this mentality of like, I'm taking back control. I'm on this app. I'm going to make friends. And like, if they want to be my friend and I want to be theirs, why isn't it like a love match forever and ever? And it's not anything really to do with you specifically or them specific. Well, sometimes it is, but most of the time it really is just like connection. Like we had another, I wouldn't call this person a mutual friend. Like we were trying to
somebody that you connected with that you eventually introduced me to.
Yeah. And then we all had a day where we went out to this like amusement park together, and I think you were sort of trying to build closeness with her and it didn't necessarily work. Do you want to tell them about your massive failure?
Just say, excuse me. That's my line to say. In fact, it was. But yeah, this girl, right off tops, like I knew she was super nice. I knew that there was a reason that you had connected with her, but just off tops, I can just tell we are from the different side of the tracks and we just don't have a lot in common, and that's fine. I'm like a lot more kind of artistic and edgy and traumatized, and she was a lot more put together and formally educated and kind of proper.
It was actually somewhat comical trying to listen to you like carry on a conversation with her about Taylor Swift.
Bro, I was just being my ADHD self. I'm like jumping from topic to topic. I don't think she could keep up, which is fine. Some people cannot.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just didn't vibe, and I felt like I needed to keep up a relationship with her as to not create a wedge between us. And I think you were kind of like still figuring out if this was going to be a long-term relationship for you. And so there was never that pressure put onto me, but I felt like it was just automatically there because that's somebody you introduced me to. And it ended up putting me in situations where I'm like trying to hang out with this girl after I know for a fact I don't really love her company.
Yeah, and I think that's something to also really keep in mind when you're when you're going through this process, because we both have like forced ourselves to hang out with people where there was not that chemistry and where it was pretty obvious that a longer, like closer, like anything more than an acquaintanceship really wasn't going to be able to be built. And I think it left us both feeling pretty drained and honestly not having the energy to make other probably better connections. So I think sometimes you just kind of got to know when to like axe it. Like we also had another semi-mutual friend who I did spend like a lot of time with, and I saw this person pretty regularly, and I think she and I tried to get close, but it just for some reason like it wasn't
a love connection.
It just wasn't the click just was not there, and ultimately it wound up being kind of a sticky point for the both of us and a little bit like painful in the end, because we had spent all this time trying to like make a puzzle piece fit that just was not gonna fit. And if we had been a little bit, I think, more honest with ourselves from the beginning of just like, there's nothing wrong with you or me, this is just not like a love connection. I love that phrase.
So my sister coined that, and I will use it until the day that
it's the best. Shout out to your sister. But yeah, I think if we had been more mindful and honest with ourselves, that just it wouldn't have gone that way.
So let me ask you this: what advice would you give our listeners if they have a new friendship and they really can see it going somewhere and being a long-term thing, but the person that you're trying to be friends with just has a different communication style than you, and you're feeling maybe like you have some hurt feelings, or you just don't really know how to get deeper?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have experienced this a lot because I think honestly it's common. It happens to a lot of people, and I know we've heard from some of our mutual friends that we have even now this kind of feeling of like, I meet this person, the vibes are good, and then it's not going to that next place. I think my best advice would honestly be sort of taking it step by step. Like I had an experience a little while ago where I matched with a girl and the vibes were great. We had a ton in common. The first couple of things were going awesome, and we were actually like, I would say we were friends for a solid like couple of months, and then about a month and a half in, I started to realize that it just was not, like it had kind of hit this plateau, like we were growing, and then it just really flattened out. And so my first step was, the next time I hung out with her, I really tried to be super intentional before I went, and also like during the hang, about getting closer. Like I thought of some stuff in my head that I was like, this is just like my note cards from last week.
You're such a freak.
But like I thought about some stuff in my head that I was like, this is stuff I'm struggling with right now, and I kind of want to like test the waters. And I will say doing this can be a little scary. Like it can definitely be scary to sort of push to that more deeper, vulnerable place if you have a connection with somebody that's currently like really staying in the shallow waters. But I think that you're never going to get anywhere if you don't actively like try and just swim out further. Like you have to go for it. And then I would say, and this is what I did, if it works, great. You've got yourself a good friend. Good job. Snaps to you. But if it doesn't work, I think that is the point in time where you really need to have a conversation with yourself and look at this friend connection you have, this little girly pop you got.
I was me gagging to anybody listening, because
they're not gonna fucking know what that was.
You do it.
You've got to look at it and be like, okay, what I have here is like an acquaintance or like a kind of surface level friendship, a good times friendship, and is that what I want? And sometimes the conclusion can be yes. Like I know you have some friends who you don't see that regularly, whom you mostly just call up to have like a good time. And if you want that, then great, keep that person around. For me at that time with this specific person, I was like, you know what? I'm busy. I don't feel like I have enough time or like mental bandwidth for a more surface level friendship. I want my Sex and the City squad. I want like 3 deep friends.
If that's not what you're aiming for, you need to reassess.
You need to get your priorities right. That's like the crown
of the goal.
But I was like, you know what? This just isn't really what I want right now. And so I kind of accepted that it wasn't going to go anywhere. And I sort of let that relationship like peter off naturally. I also think that my attempts to go deeper were like good enough for her. But I think this is a really interesting question for you, because I know you're a little bit more extroverted than me. How do you feel about having those like more surface level friends? Do you have a lot? Do you feel like it's a drain? What's your read?
Honestly, I felt differently about that question at different points. You know, like when I first moved here, I didn't really have a lot going for me here other than my remote job that I had already been working before in Seattle. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. So of course I want to go and do a bunch of stuff. And if I have a bunch of deep friendships, I might be emotionally exhausted hanging out with all of them. And like I had another friend, and she has like 3 really close childhood friends, and then we were becoming really close too. And I'd go like a week without seeing her, and like she would then meet up with me and be like, oh my god, this happened. And I'm like, spill the tea. I need to hear what happened. And she would like sigh and just be like, I already told all my other friends. I don't really want to repeat it again. For real. And oh my god, I was so sad because I'm like, I need the tea. The cup is empty. However, I totally feel for her, because I've been in situations like that before too. Like when I first moved here and I had a lot of friends, I was like, oh my god, I feel like a broken record. Like the things that I think are worth talking about, I've now talked about with everybody, and I don't want to hear myself say it anymore. And so that was like overwhelming for me. But then the other side of the coin, if you have just a bunch of surface level friendships, then you might not be getting that kind of like emotional expression that you need. And you know, that's what you're ultimately aiming for. That can feel like really alienating. It's, you know, lonely. And so anyway, back to your point. So right now I feel like I have my 2 to 3 really close friends that I honestly, I'd say 3. 3 is like perfect for me in terms of people that I can call and I can spill my guts to, and they know every facet of my life. And then I would say I maybe have 4 other friends,
like 4 surface level ones
that are more surface level, and like they've kind of teetered between being deep and not. And you know, I kind of gauge how people feel too, because people have their own stuff going on in their own lives. And so I feel like if I can feel somebody kind of pulling back a little bit, I'm gonna reach out and be like, what's going on? And then if they want to share that, great. If they don't, like, I'm gonna give them some space. And so I think ultimately like having all of your friends in a hand is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. And I would say, I think you're right. The truth is like how many surface level versus deep friends you want to have is super subjective. I think we're sort of on like opposite ends of the coin here, because you are definitely, I think, a more extroverted person, and you also need a lot less recharge time. So having like 3 close friends and 4 surface level friends, I think works for you. And that's like, you know, in terms of time commitment, that's like probably 4-ish days per week that you would need to devote to friendships, if you're like balancing out the deeper ones and the more light ones. But for me, I am a person who needs a bit more recharge time and just solo me time.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I honestly have like had to cope with the fact that a lot of people are like that. You know, especially post-COVID. Not everybody wants to be hanging out and going on adventures every day.
It's overwhelming.
My dad too.
She sure does. But for me, I don't. So I have probably like 2-ish more surface level friends, because I just get overwhelmed with having to keep up lighter connections, because for me I don't get as much out of just like going out with somebody I don't know that well just for like the sake of going out to do something on a Saturday. Like if I'm going out, I love doing fun stuff with you, but I also love that there's like an emotional connection that we have built and are like keeping up, and I feel supported, and that's important to me. But there are a lot of people like you who really sometimes just want to do something on a Friday night, and so more like kind of acquaintanceships are good for you, because it's just one extra person who you can call up if you're trying to get your cute little ass on the tab.
Oh yeah. So I'm really curious to get some feedback from you guys on, how many days a week do you devote to your friends? How many really, really close friends do you have versus people that are a little bit more surface level? And like, what do you think is a good middle ground for people that say, kind of lost a lot of their social life during COVID and now are trying to gain it back?
Yeah, we'd love to know. So leave your stats in the comments for us.
Please.
We want to know if we're normal.
Please validate my life stage.
Okay, so I would love to ask you, when you're on Bumble, like when you have been on Bumble, how do you sort of like let people know what you're looking for off tops, or what do you see in other people's profiles that lets you know what they're looking for?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it's changed over time. But I definitely like to choose, like, you have an option to answer questions throughout your profile, and that gives a little bit of information about yourself. And so like I like to talk about my job and like I mention what my work schedule is like,
Smart.
either in my bio or in my question responses, so that they kind of know off tops like what my schedule is like. And then from there, in my bio I kind of talk about what I'm looking for. Like I think my bio right now says I'm looking to expand my friend group, and so I think that that's an indicator I'm not starting from scratch. I already have people in my life, but I'm wanting to expand it. And so I think there's other people that I've seen where they're like, I just moved here, I need girlfriends bad. Like, I'm tired of hanging out with my boyfriend all the time.
I say that all the time.
I'm
tired of hanging out with my boyfriend all the time is absolutely code for like, I don't have any friends, which no judgment. Like we both started with no friends.
Yeah.
But
and also I like that kind of information because also then I know you have a partner. You have a partner that you're used to spending most of your time with, and now you're adding to that. And so that helps me gauge like what to expect from you. And so I just think, sharing little tidbits of information, like I just cannot stand the girls that barely fill out their profile and then they just want to chit chat and not really get to those points, because then at that point, if we're hanging out, I kind of feel like we're maybe jumping the gun because we may not be compatible in what we're looking for. And so I think for people that have experience with Bumble or, are starting fresh, like just try to really express yourself and like be authentic to what you expect from other people.
Absolutely. And I think if you're going to think about it in like bullet point terms, I do think the three main things to hit in your own profile and look for in other people's profiles is work schedule, because that's a huge one in terms of like time that you have to offer somebody, whether or not you have a partner, and how many friends you already have. Because I think when I'm getting to know girls, those wind up being the three primary things that affect how much time we spend together and how close we are. Like you do have a 9 to 5, which affects when we can hang out, and you have your boyfriend Carl, which also like, I mean, I love Carl. Like, I love when I get to tag along, but you guys do need your own couple times, so that really affects how much we see each other.
Yeah. And also, in my profile, I've added pictures where my boyfriend's there and it's my friends.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is sending the indication, like, my boyfriend loves to hang out with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And like vice versa, like, and that's really special that I've been able to kind of curate friends like that.
Totally.
But that's not always the case. And I'm always pretty sensitive to that when I make a new friend. Like, I don't expect that they just want to hang out with Carl all the time, but I'll give them opportunities. And if they vibe, then honestly, that's amazing. I like to blend together my different friend groups and stuff.
Yeah, I will say I have loved getting to know Carl. He is absolutely one of the girls, and it is super fun. I think if any of you guys have boyfriends who you like want to hang out with your friends, because I know that's how I am in relationships. I love my boyfriend and my friends hanging out, and that's how you are too. If you also feel that way, I think it could be cute to like have some photos of your boyfriend with your friends in your profile, or at least say like your boyfriend is one of the girls. Like I would love that if I saw that in someone's profile.
100%. And there's probably other people that would see that and be like, oh hell no, like I'm not trying to hang out with you and your boyfriend. That's not awkward. And no worries. If that doesn't work for you, that's fine. But like another thing I will say is I've met up with a lot of Bumble girls where they immediately want me to be a part of their friend group and like introduce me to other Bumble girls. Like I've had people like host Bumble get-togethers, and I didn't even realize
the Bumble mixers go crazy.
The Bumble mixers are honestly they happen a lot, and they're kind of all throughout the app. And so I love that because it's fun to meet a lot of people, but that's maybe not exactly what I'm expecting when I first make a connection with somebody. And so, there's been girls who say it in their bio, like I like to get the Bumble girls together, like let's do a Friendsgiving, let's do this, whatever it is. And like also like having pictures with their friend group. Like if you want me to be a part of your friend group, I would maybe like an indication of that. And let me just say, people don't always know off tops that that's what they're looking for. But if you have a pretty close friend group and you ideally want your other friends to eventually be friends with the current ones that you have, I think saying that somehow in your bio will help weed out the people that are just maybe too uncomfortable to do that, or they're just looking for more one-on-one connections.
Yeah, or like have lives of their own, because I think at this point, like when both of us first moved here, I think we both would have been like thrilled to be part of somebody's friend group, because we genuinely like did not know a soul. But now that we've made some of our own connections, I think sort of just being swallowed up into a pre-existing friend group that we're not a part of would be a little bit sticky for us. But if that's what you're looking for, there are girlies who would love that. So just being super clear is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and like that could be one of the initial questions that you asked on Bumble is like do you already have a friend group here in LA, or are you like trying to create that, or are you kind of just looking for one-on-one connections? Like these are not awkward questions. Like these are honestly good information gatherers to figure out, if somebody is expecting a one-on-one connection or wants more. Because, I had one friend who wanted to introduce me to pretty much her entire friend group, and that takes a lot of emotional energy, mental energy, not just for the one hangout, but if you like them and you want to keep it going, like then I'm signing up for being your friend, but then also giving time to these other people that you want me to have a relationship with, because I don't want to be brought into a friend group and I really only know one person and I'm only there because of that person.
100%.
So another thing that I want to ask you guys, and I hope you can drop your answers in the comments, is how do you feel about the prospect of looking for one-on-one friendships through Bumble versus like trying to form a friend group? And this is something we might end up doing a full episode on, depending on what we can muster up in terms of stories. But I do think that there's a huge distinction, between people who are looking for one or the other. And when I first got on Bumble, I really was looking for a friend group. And I was trying to make good enough connections with people one-on-one to bring them all together. And in a lot of ways, that didn't end up working out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was also what I was going for at first. In my head, I really, really wanted like a friend group. And then it just sort of kept like falling flat, because the connections between, like the connection one-on-one can be great, but mixing like 4 or 5 different personalities can get tricky, and you wind up having to like balance a lot more, and there can be a lot more like drama, hurt feelings, whatever. It can be messy. So for a while I decided I just wanted like strictly one-on-one relationships, but then I also had some trouble with that because I wound up feeling so like fractured and separate, and it's such a heavy time commitment. So we really want to know, like I think we're kind of riding the line right now. I would love to know what you guys
think. I think literally based on what we just said, we should definitely make this a full episode more I'm thinking about it. Because honestly, like, especially when you're the one trying to bring people together, like as that person, you end up taking on a lot of the pressure and burden. But anyway, I'm not going to launch into all of that right now. We're going to wrap up this week's episode, and I want to say thank you for sticking with us. And if you have any notes to say on, our sound quality or anything like that you think would be helpful to how we're recording, please let us know, because we are brand new at this and we want to make it the best experience we can for you.
Absolutely. We are so open to feedback. Next week, we're kind of going to be getting into friend breakups. I know that's like a sticky subject for people, but we've definitely had some experiences with that over the last couple of years. Some more dramatic ones, some less dramatic ones, the best ways to like go about it, but also the best ways to receive it if it's happening to you. So I definitely think we have some stuff to share.
Oh, yeah. Let me just say, I feel like for anybody who's about to start using Bumble BFF or just trying to expand their friend group in general, you got to know the necessary evil of breaking off friendships that are not working for you and being able to accept the fact that certain people are not going to vibe with you. And that's nothing personal. And honestly, if somebody feels that way, then you don't want them in your life, because I think we're all looking for people that genuinely love each other's company and like wants to be with them through thick and thin.
But anyway, thank you so much for listening.
We're really excited to see you next week, and please answer our couple prompts in the comments so that we know how you feel about what we've been creating so far, and we can start to get to know you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you then. Goodbye. Okay.
That one was some tip.
Wow.
Oh man. Oh.
Whoa.
So good.
See you next time. Bye.